Hey, welcome to Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour, and today we have a special show, a very special show. We're going to be spotlighting 1973, and specifically, I figured why not pick Jim Croce. He was a big part of 1973. So we're going to spotlight everything that happened in 1973 and Jim Croce, and we're going to discuss a lot of stuff. And the first thing that we got to get to, we've been waiting 2 weeks for this, is we got to talk about Bello and Staten Island. That, of course, my guest, you know my guest, Cha-Cha and Bello.
I'm not a guest.
One's on the right, one's on the left. So anyway, yeah, Bello is over there, and he lives in Staten Island. And there's this new show on that we've been discussing. It's called Staten Island Hustle, right? And as soon as I saw it, I said, "Oh my God, I got to ask Bello about this. I wonder if he knows these guys." So the premise of this, I'm not really sure, but there's like these 4 guys or so from Staten Island, and they hang out and they're hysterical. And then each week, I think they like try to come up with a new business plan, new idea, invention or something.
Like a Ralph Cramden.
Yeah, exactly. Glow in the dark wallpaper, and no cal pizza. So anyway, I'm talking to Bello about it. He goes, "Oh, that's my cousin."
Of course it is.
Yeah. So tell us about this show if you've seen it, and tell us about your cousin. Which one is he again?
Big Ron.
Big Ron. That's it. Right?
Big Ron Montana.
So Big Ron, I think he's the youngest of the crew there, and he served time in prison. It sounds like. So it's an hysterical show. Tell us about Big Ron.
Well, I love the show, not because. Well, I think so. I think it's because of Ronnie.
Of course.
You know what I mean. So that's the way he is in real life. He's been that way since a little kid. You know what I mean? He's just a funny, good guy.
Yeah, and then the last episode, what were they doing? Like trying to fix rims.
Yes.
Yeah, they had this machine. And so the big, other guy made a sign.
The machine yet.
Right. They had to get this. They have to scheme to get all the stuff going on. It's like the Staten Island version of Shark Tank, kind of, you know. And so they were scheming to get all this equipment and stuff. So anyway, they're gonna fix rims. So the other guy, he says, "All right, I'm gonna paint the truck. I'm gonna get a big billboard, and it says for the best rim jobs in Staten Island, come see Big Ron." You know, so it was funny. Yes.
With the picture of him with his thumb up. His face when they zoom
Big
in.
Big Ron, best rim job
in the island. Or
Ron's
like
rim job.
We got to talk about the funniest part of the show that we saw last week. So it was like terms of endearment that she uses. So it was Big Angie's sister Janine talking to her husband. I forget his name. I don't know.
That guy's name is Dom.
Dom.
Right.
Dom. Like Dominic.
So anyway, they were doing some scheme and it turned off the electricity in the house.
So I didn't see this.
And the air condition stopped working. Right. So you want to say.
Listen, scumbag.
I need my air conditioning. Right. So it's just like, like
love.
It's like, hey, listen, sweetheart, I need my air conditioning. And she's like, hey,
honey.
Listen, scumbag, I need my air conditioning. So it's like.
But the way she said it.
The way she says it, everything about this show is hysterical. So I highly advise going to check this show out. Well, anyway, so we're going to play a long distance dedication, and this is going to go out to Wilhelm Mars, wherever you may be. So we're going to start off the show with Bad Leroy Brown, of course. This is the number 1 and the number 2 songs of 1973. So we got Bad Leroy Brown by Jim Croce, and we got Tie Yellow Ribbon by Tony Orlando. And then we'll be right back. So, all right, so let's talk about James Joseph Croce, born January 10th, 1943 in South Philly. See, now this is the thing I did not know. That, of course, I loved Jim Croce, but I didn't really know anything about him. I pictured him being from Louisiana, the Bayou, a country boy kind of thing.
Jim Croce?
Yeah, I never, because of the songs he writes, and it sounded like he had kind of an accent, really.
But I didn't get that.
Yeah,
I
so
somehow knew he was from Pennsylvania.
So he was from South Philly, and that's the tough part of town there. So he was born to parents James Albert Croce and Flora Babucci.
Flora Babucci.
Wasn't that your maiden name, Cha-Cha? Cha-Cha Babucci.
It wasn't.
Let's go with that. That's going to be your new name, Cha-Cha Babucci. So anyway, he graduated from Villanova.
Listen, scumbag.
That's your new catchphrase. I like that. So did you hear what I said? He graduated from Villanova.
What's that? Like a good school?
That's a good school. Our daughter was talking about that. Yeah.
Where is that one?
That's near Philadelphia. Yeah.
Somewhere over there. Too far.
Yeah. So and then he met his future wife, 1963, Ingrid Jacobson. He met her at a hootenanny.
Ooh.
That's just where I met Cha Cha Babucci as well. We met in a hootenanny, right? So it was a whirlwind romance. And in 1966, they were married. And she was Jewish, so he converted to Judaism for her. Yes. So then they toured all over the world, or mostly the United States, actually. They never left the country. So they toured over. They were a duo, a singing duo, right?
Okay.
No, I didn't know this.
So they moved to New York City for a while, and they put out an album, and they didn't have any success, really. I was going to be nice and say they didn't have much success, but they had absolutely no success whatsoever.
Okay.
They didn't sell. Only person who bought a copy was Flora Babucci. Yes. That's the mother.
Okay.
Yeah. So, he had to do some odd jobs. They were living in New York City, and he signed some bad deals with crooked businessmen of the time, like every single person did back in the 60s.
Yeah.
These filthy animals.
Tommy James, right?
Yeah, everybody, yeah. So then at one point he was like, said, all right, I'm selling all my guitars except one. And they moved back to Philly, but they moved to a farm on the outskirts of Philly. Not many farms in Philly, if you didn't notice.
Yes.
So they lived on this farm for a while, and they used to have like all these parties and stuff, and he would be performing at the local clubs and stuff. But did you know all these people that used to come over to his parties? James Taylor used to be there regular. Wow. Cheech was a regular, as in Cheech and Chong.
Without Chong?
Yeah, no Chong. Chong was in California probably.
Okay.
And Arlo Guthrie and like all these people. They said they were having the best time, right? So then
because they loved his music, or
no, they didn't know. They were just friends somehow. They were all good friends.
Maybe that New York went in the New York scene with the
right.
They all helped each other back. That's
right. But then this was on the farm out in Pennsylvania.
But maybe
somewhere.
That's where they met. I mean,
yeah, right. So. So they were hanging out on the farm and not doing much of anything. And he was afraid to write songs at this point because of his bad deals that he wrote. Right. He said, if I have a successful song, I'm not going to get any money out of it. These crooks are going to get it all. He was afraid to write any songs, right? So then probably around 1972, his wife comes to him and says, hey, scumbag, I'm pregnant.
There you go. You better write a song.
Right. So he sits down and he's like, Jesus, Jesus Maria Jose. So he sits down and check this out. In 1 week's time, he writes all of these hit songs that he had in 1 week song. Wow. Operator, Beverly Leroy Brown, blah, 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 blah. I'll name all these songs, but he wrote them all in 1 week's time.
Wow. That's crazy.
Right?
Oh, because he was desperate for money.
Right, because he was making like $25 and he said, all right, forget it. All this stuff I had bottled up, I'm going to put it down and I'm going to go for it. Wow. Right? So then he signs a 3-record contract with ABC Records, and he goes into the studio, records these albums, and he becomes the biggest star overnight after 20 years, right?
Wow.
So this album was released in 72. It's called Don't Mess Around with Jim.
Oh,
right? So let's
Don't Mess Around with Jim.
Exactly. So all these albums came out at that time. Let me name it. You Don't Mess Around with Jim. 1972, it went to number 1. Life and Times, 1973, went to number 7. And I Got a Name went to number 2, also in 73. Yeah. So he had 3 albums out in the span of 1 year. And listen to all these singles. I Got a Name. You Don't Mess Around with Jim went to number 8. Bad Bad Leroy Brown, of course, number 1. Yeah. Operator, I Got a Name. I already said Time in a Bottle went to number 1.
I love that song.
Now, you had a interesting story about Time in a Bottle.
I remember
it says it right
the
here.
movie. She Lives. It was a made-for-TV movie with Desi Arnaz Jr.
Right.
And he was married to. They were a young couple married, and the poor girl got cancer.
Oh no! Did she die?
No, she lives.
Oh, nice!
Yeah.
That's the name of the movie. She lives.
Was the song in the beginning and at the end was
and it says it right here. Talk about that movie.
Wait, who was the girl in the movie?
I don't remember who that was.
Wasn't Linda Pearl, was it? No.
Might have been one of the Babushka girls.
Oh, a Babushka girl.
It was his mom, Flo Babucci. Flora Babucci.
I don't remember who the girl was. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was B. Arthur. Yes.
That sounds about right.
I don't think B. Arthur was ever young. Especially not in 1973. That's when Maude was on.
Yeah, that is true.
So,
Walter.
Yeah. So So Croce, I love Jim Croce's songwriting and his stylings, and because he got all of this from being a blue collar worker. He was driving trucks and doing all this stuff while he was trying to be a songwriter, and he had all these very interesting stories. They're kind of like a little novel, each one, you know. Even though Stephen pointed out, Bad Boy Leroy Brown and Don't Mess Around with Jim are basically the same exact song. Just change the words. It's like,
different character, but same thing. First video I ever saw was Bad Boy Leroy Brown. Was a cartoon on the Sonny and Cher show.
Oh, we talked about that last time. See how it all comes full circle?
Yeah. Very strange. Loved it.
So anyway, during this time in 72, he became a huge star, and they had moved to San Diego, and he's touring all over the world. He's on every TV show. He's got hit song after hit song, and his wife, crushing his dreams, big pain in the ass, says, what do you mean? You don't know her. You don't know Ingrid Jacobson.
You don't know her either.
But I can tell what she said. She said, I don't want you traveling so much. I miss you. And they just had a baby.
Yeah.
So at this time in 73 then.
But didn't she say you got to write some songs? Because we're going to
right. But now,
about that.
Right. He wrote the songs. And but the thing was, he wasn't really still making money. And that's what was driving her crazy. She was like, he's touring, working so hard. And he's still not making all this money.
Yeah, that's annoying.
I demand an accounting of this.
Right.
I think I understand.
And he was always like, don't worry about it, and that kind of stuff. So anyway.
What happened?
So he decided that he was going to retire from touring.
After a year?
Really, yeah. Through 73, he was going to wrap it up at the end of 73. Well, I'm still sure he wouldn't retire completely, but, he'd take some time off and then go slow it down.
Wife and the baby.
Right. Be with the wife and the baby and stuff. And then, but things did not work out. That on September 20th, 1973, he was in a plane crash coming home from a gig, going to another gig in Louisiana. So maybe that's why I thought he was from Louisiana.
All right.
So he died at 30 years old.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming.
Yeah, and his son AJ was 2 years old at that time.
Wow.
So so after he died, he actually had more success. They had all these posthumous releases. They had all these compilation albums, and all his past songs went to #1 again. And so it was a very sad time there. But after his death, his wife spent many years trying to get the money that he was owed, and she had all these lawsuits, and she went after everybody, and eventually she did get it. Many lawsuits and stuff. So his son hopefully had the money, and Stephen mentioned too, his son is a musician.
Very talented.
Yes, AJ Croce.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're gonna change up the show now too. We're gonna smell the album before we play some songs, more songs. Exactly. We're going to hell with ourselves tonight. Delicious.
Good
so I have a bunch of other 73 albums here. If you want to smell them, feel free.
Let me smell.
But
I'll smell Donny Osmond.
If I had $1 for every time I heard that.
Then another poor guy died in a car
Smells
crash.
like-
Yes, he died in a plane, but
What's that all about?
I don't have much sympathy for him because
It was
his own stupid plane. He's driving around in some little plane that you shouldn't be driving in.
They all did that.
No, this was a regular plane. Yeah, so next time we're going to be doing a John Denver show. So
This album, I remember this album. I remember that album,
73 was a big year. So do you want to name your favorite Jim Croce song?
I think it's
I think he's got so many. I like that song, Photographs and Memories. They're all very sad. Stephen was telling me he sits in his room in the dark and cries while he listens to him. And
What are my choices again?
Operator, Don't Mess Around with Jim, Bad Leroy Brown, Time in a Bottle. You pick Time in a Bottle. Let's all go with Time in a Bottle.
Yeah.
That's it. It's unanimous. We're all picking Time in a Bottle.
I forget what it's It's another sad one. Oh, I have to say I love you.
Oh, yeah, and a song.
Oh, that's my favorite.
You can't take it now.
Man, that guy was awesome.
Operator, and you help me places go. They're all excellent songs. So anyway, let's play some 73 songs now. And one of these is dedicated to Bello. Killing Me Softly with his song by Roberta Flack, which is a top 10 song in 73. And this one goes out to Bello, Little Willie by The Sweet. And we'll be right back.
Little Sweet.
Oh, man.
Hey, welcome back. Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour, listening on 474 The Mix. And you just heard Killing Me Softly by Roberta Flack and Little Willie by The Sweet. How do you like that FM radio voice, the Johnny Fever voice I was putting on for the ladies? I should have like a FM DJ name too. Dennis Fever.
Yeah, I was going to.
I got Zika virus. That's going to be my name. All right. So anyway, let's talk about 1973 now. There was so much stuff going on. Let's talk about the movies first. So many good movies. The greatest horror movie ever made came out in 1973.
I think I know.
The Exorcist. Yes, I told you that story. My sister had to move home from college after watching it.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it was very. She was going to NYU, and she went to see the movie, and she had to move back home.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, and I don't know. Did we let my daughter watch it? Our daughter watch the show?
I don't think we let her. I think
did
she
she ever?
did. And
because she kind of like was mocking it, I recall.
Yeah.
I was like, how dare you?
So scary.
They're not scared. They're not scared of these things nowadays.
Yeah, I mean,
I told my daughter to be petrified.
They're desensitized now.
Yeah, right.
But the truth is, remember the scene when a head turns around? It was
yeah.
I just saw it a couple weeks ago. It was ridiculous. What was it? It was like a doll's head on a stick. It was so obvious that it was fake.
I don't know. It scared the bejesus out of me.
When we were kids, I guess it was scary.
And then like that crab walk down the stairs she did.
Yeah.
And like, it was such a good movie with all this, the pea soup.
And she killed the priest.
God,
and oh my God, it was everything
why
bad.
you do this to me, Damie?
Oh, remember Saturday Night Live when they did Rich and Fry?
Your mom sews socks in hell. Your mom sews socks that smell. Yeah. That was funny.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, so look at all these other movies. American Graffiti, Papillon. Did you remember seeing Papillon?
No, not
Dustin Hoffman was in
that.
that. Yeah, it was good.
They were trapped on that island.
Yeah, in jail.
Prison.
It was really good. Way We Were, Cha-Cha's favorite, with Babs.
Oh my God. No.
I had to shut that movie off. I couldn't watch it. It was unwatchable.
With Robert Redford.
Yeah, I tried to watch it with you, and I said, this is horrible. This is a girl's movie. There's no man can sit through this movie.
Oh my God.
And Barbara Streisand is dating Robert Redford. And I was like, what is this, science fiction movie?
That was
smoke a cigarette in the shower, that girl. I know what you're saying. He was the Brad Pitt of that. You know what
absolutely.
I mean?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great movie. I
never thought about that. There's no way you'd take that, bro.
So listen to these other ones. Magnum Force, Dirty Harry, Live and Let Die, 007.
Wow. I saw that on my birthday.
Really?
July 13th on my birthday. Yeah, that year.
What about this one? Walking Tall. Do you remember that? The original one?
Buford
Pusser. That's a name.
Yes,
now that's going to be my new DJ name.
That's good.
DJ Buford Pusser.
Yeah, that was good.
He walked
Joe
around with
Baker,
that stick.
Right?
Exactly. Very good, Steve. Very impressed.
I remember that.
Now this one, Serpico, was just on recently. I watched it last weekend with Al Pacino. Great movie.
Did you ever hear that?
I could actually imitate Al Pacino from those days, the old Al Pacino.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, we're going to take a walk. No cuffs. You try to run. I'm going to put one in your back. That was him. Now it's
good.
I can't do the new one, but I can do the old one.
His
you
voice
try
got
and
crazy.
run. I'm going to put one in your back. I just
like
saw that again a couple weeks ago. That's a good one.
Yeah. So then, of course, this was the time of blaxploitation movies. There was 100 of them this year, and my favorite one was called Blackenstein and Scream Blackula Scream. These are legitimate movies. And this one that you're holding here, do you have Superfly over there?
Yes, I believe.
All right, so Superfly came out that year too. This was,
awesome.
cinema. Soylent Green. You know that one with Charlton Heston when it's like a science fiction one when they're at the end of the world and they run out of food, and then this company makes this food product, and at the end, it's people.
No.
So very good.
Only allowed to watch nice movies.
How about this one, World's Greatest Athlete? That was a Disney movie.
Saw that in the theater.
What was that guy's name? Jan Michael Vincent.
Yes, a
who,
young Jan
he was like one of the most handsome stars in the world then, and he fell down quick. He had bad. He fell into drugs and insanity. Yeah.
Yes. I remember in that movie, Howard Cosell, he was in the movie. They all started booing him. The audience was booing the movie. I remember that.
Howard Cosell, but he was such a big part of the 70s. I love him. He was hysterical.
He had a voice.
Yes. He sounds like an inane drone.
Yes. That nasal twang is the most recognized sound in broadcasting. There's an inane drone out of the booth.
Mohammed.
Yes, that's what he said. Muhammad, get this inane drone out of the booth. Is that ridiculous?
For those of you who don't know, it means you have not spent your time wisely as a child.
Yes.
And this was Odd Couple References, the great episode with Howard Cosell. So yeah, and another movie I loved that time was White Lightning. Burt Reynolds was a big star at this point too. He had a lot of good movies. So you know what movie won the Oscar that year? The Sting. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Another one with what's his name? Robert De Niro and Paul Newman.
Yeah,
what a cast!
Wow.
And the guy from Jaws, Robert Shaw, who played the captain.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
Oh.
SHAW.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yes, and I want to talk about that because Marvin Hamlish, he was huge that year. He won Academy Award for the Way We Were soundtrack and the Sting soundtrack.
Wow.
He did both in 73.
Oh my gosh.
He was
What's the name
big.
of that song? It's not the Sting.
The Entertainer.
That's
it. And you want to know something about The Entertainer? That every time I go visit Chacha's family, her brother's that's the only song he knows on piano. So every house we go to where there's a piano and everybody has a piano and they're all out of tune horribly, so he starts mangling The Entertainer. So it's going to be like I'm going to be on the show someday and they're going to say, who wrote The Entertainer? And I'm going to be Michael
Cha-Cha's brother.
Michael Babucci.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's Swanee River.
And that's a Honeymooner reference. If you guys don't get this, you have not been watching the right TV show.
That's great.
And if
That
you
is
haven't
so
watched
funny.
that show, you're probably not listening to our show.
Exactly. Don't waste your time reading books. You should be watching television. So anyway, I want to talk about the 46th Academy Awards ceremony.
Right.
That was hosted by Burt Reynolds and David Niven, right?
Wow.
So it's best remembered as the ceremony in which a streaker named Robert Opal ran across the stage naked while
that's
flashing the
great.
peace sign.
I forgot about
Right.
streaking. That was
so,
great.
and David Niven had a great line. He jokingly quipped, "The only laugh that man will ever get in his life is by stripping off and showing his shortcomings."
There we go.
Very
good.
clever of him
Very
to come up with
clever.
that. And in his British accent, it probably sounds
Yes.
funnier.
Absolutely.
I don't do a British accent.
I
no.
bet you that was the year of the album, the song, The Streak. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, I
73,
think that came
maybe?
out that year or maybe later. That was Ray Stevens.
Yes.
They call it the street.
Yes. Don't look, asshole. Oh, that's a great year.
What a great year.
Yeah. So that was voted as the most memorable incident in Academy Awards history. It beat out Marlon Brando's 1972 boycott when he brought up this Indian girl to explain why he wouldn't be coming to get his Oscar for The Godfather. It was Sachin Littlefeather came up. So, people were so much more creative back then, you know? Right now they say, "Oh, I don't like Trump." Oh, blah, blah, blah. Now these guys are running naked across the stage.
That's great.
Sending up Indians to collect your award. Yeah. I would send up Iron Eyes Cody. That's who I would send up. You know who that is?
No.
That's the Indian guy in that commercial
with
the
the
garbage
no
and he
way.
cries.
Yeah, he was crying.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right. So
He's
let's
my
talk.
favorite Indian.
There was a lot of good TV and music that year too. Let's talk about these albums, Cha-Cha. Besides
Let's.
these one-hit wonders, of course, they had some of the greatest music ever recorded. Dark Side of the Moon, which some people say is the greatest album ever.
Wow.
I don't say that, but some people say it. Goat's Head Soup by the Rolling Stones. What about this one, Cha-Cha? Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John.
Oh, my God.
Quadrophenia by The Who. House of the Holy by Led Zeppelin. Innovision Stevie Wonder. Raw Power by The Stooges. Aladdin Sane by Bowie. And all the Beatles had solo albums. Mind Games by John Lennon. Band on the Run by Wings. George Harrison. Ringo had a great solo album. And Bruce had 2 albums that year. Bruce Springsteen.
Brilliant.
Wild Innocent, East Street Shuffle, and Greetings from Asbury Park. Both came out in 73. So
That was a great year.
and we're going to talk about the one-hit wonders in a minute, but I got to look at it on my phone. Yeah, I forgot to write them all down. But anyway, let's talk about TV. That was the year Charlie Brown Thanksgiving debuted. You notice that? There was a time before that was actually on TV. We lived through this dark period where that was never around. And you know what else debuted that year? Schoolhouse Rock.
No way.
Remember that?
Yep.
Conjunction, junction,
Yeah.
what's my function? Or my favorite Schoolhouse Rock, I have to say, was I'm Just a Bill.
Yeah,
I'm
very
just
good,
a
very
bill.
good.
sitting here on Capitol Hill. Yeah. So there you go. You know, it's that you could go to school for 27 years and you'll never know what a bill is, right? But then one
Saturday
2-minute song cartoon, and you're like expert in politics.
That's how I learned the Constitution. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Like I never even understood that. 20 years later, that they're saying that. That's exactly. That's awesome.
Teachers still don't understand that kids will learn much better with comedy and cartoons. And music. Then
a noun is a person, place, or thing. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they had all these cop shows on. Kojak was my father's favorite show of all. My father looked exactly like Kojak. He used to have a hat like that and the glasses, and he was completely bald. So
did he have a lollipop?
You know, he didn't do that.
How crazy was that? That guy was his brother. That didn't
make
sense.
I think it really was.
They got the same last name. Doesn't even make sense.
I think it really was
George
in real life.
Savalas.
Yeah. So, and Barnaby Jones premiered a Quinn Martin production. Barnaby Jones was like 95 years old. I know.
I used to call him Ornery Bones instead of Barnaby. I used to say I was a little kid. This guy's 90 years old. Who's he gonna catch?
Cha-Cha's favorite Match Game premiered that year.
I still watch Match Game.
And that little guy over there, you see him? Sigmund and the Sea Monsters premiered that year. Lift him up, Cha-Cha, and bring him in here. Hold Sigmund for the show. And you know what shows ended after a long run? Bonanza started in 1902. Bonanza started as a silent feature.
Before film or anything.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It was a puppet show, and then it turned into a TV show that lasted 415 years. So then Mod Squad went off the air. Laugh-In, and Bello's favorite, Bridget Loves Bello, went off the air that year after 1 year.
I never heard of that.
That was that show. What was that girl's name?
Meredith
Baxter Burney. Yeah.
Oh,
you talked about her.
Well, I know who she is, but I don't remember Bridget or whatever.
That was on for like an hour. Yeah. So that's it.
I think she was really married to that guy.
Yeah. David Baxter Burney was his name, and she was Meredith Baxter Burney.
There you go.
He probably didn't have a hyphenated name.
No.
He was probably just David Burney.
I think she's married to a girl now.
Yeah, she was.
She is.
After being with Bernie.
No. After being with quite a few.
So did you hear they're making a comeback of that show? It's now Bridget Loves Bernice. And it's coming back next year. So, you know who died? LBJ died that year. And of course, that's very famous because that's the Mexican hooker that Steven used to go to all the time.
Lady Bird?
LBJ was her name, remember?
Oh, I didn't get it. I get it now. That is awesome. Oh, that's beautiful. LBJ. Oh, that's great.
So, Roe versus Wade became law that year. They had drive-through abortion clinics back in 73. Wow. You know what that?
I remember a joke from the 70s.
Go, man.
1973. What's the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
What?
One will see you later, the other will see you in a while. That was...
See you later, alligator, in a wild crocodile.
That's one of those 70s jokes, which I love.
That's good.
Great.
I think that was a Shecky Green joke, right? Or was it
Slappy White?
Slappy, that's what I was thinking.
Slappy.
So yeah, no comedians have those names anymore either.
No, yeah, that's true.
You know, and there's actually no good comedians anymore as well.
Yeah,
I gave my daughter a list of the top 10 comedians of all time.
Right.
Want me to tell you who they are?
Rodney.
Oh yeah. See, I didn't even have them on my list, but I'm adding them to my list. So I got Richard Pryor, Chris Rock, Eddie Murphy, right?
Right.
George Carlin.
Ooh.
I got Jerry Seinfeld in there. Did I say Chris Rock? I think, Sam Kinison, Don Rickles, Rodney Dangerfield, and who am I missing?
And did you say Bill Cosby? Can you say Bill Cosby?
You can't say Bill Cosby. Are you crazy?
But he was. So
he used to be funny, yeah.
Yeah, he was funny.
I guess.
You said Eddie Murphy?
Yes, of course.
Did you say
I said
Andrew Dice Clay?
No, he's not going in there.
I love Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, he was funny too.
So good,
yeah.
so good.
All right, so I'll have to perfect that and get the top 10 and go out with that. So anyway, we're going to play some more songs. We're going to wrap this up now. So let's make sure, before we play the songs, you got to make sure you check us out, madhousemagazine.com, the funniest rock and roll magazine in the world. We are featuring the Ginger Baker story this year. This month. Did you hear, Stephen, about this? That
I did.
Yes, that two guys tried to rob his house, and he beat them senseless and sodomized one with his walking stick. So, you don't mess with Mr. Baker. No. So anyway, check out these songs now. Check us out, social media everywhere, blah, 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 blah. So that's it. Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour here on 474 The Mix. See you next time. Let's hear it for us.
Woo! Good job, baby.
Ah.